It is so wonderful to be with all of you here with us in person, and we welcome all of those who are all over the world joining us for Shabbat, to be in our beautiful chapel, nice and cozy and warm, and preparing to bring the Shabbat into our hearts and our souls, and most importantly, being together. And we do that with lighting our candles, the flame indicating the brightness of Shabbat. As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we, by our lives, give light to all who behold us. As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we in our day be among those who kindle light. I invite everybody to join me on page 26 and rise as you are able for the Chatzi Kaddish.
Yitkadal v'yitkadar shemer Rabba.
Amen.
V'yalma divrach yirutei, v'yamlich malchutei. B'chayechon v'yomechon, u'v'chay dechol beit Yisrael. Ba'agala, ba'agala, u'v'hizman kariv, v'imaru. Yehi Shmei Rabba mevarach, le'olam olam me'almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yithaleh v'yithalal shemere kudisha la'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechamata Damiran b'yalma v'imaru.
Amen. You may be seated. We read together at the top of page 31. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows. Your wisdom sets the way on which time and season glide. Your breath guides the sail of the stars, creator of the tide of time and light. You guide the current of day into night. As the heaven spans to infinity, you set its course for eternity. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows. Baruch atah Adonai, hama'ariv aravim. Continue together on page 36 with the Ve'ahavta.
Yahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levacha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol me'odecha v'chayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi metzavecha hayom alevavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibartavam v'shivtecha b'beitecha ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובישעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
Continue on page 41. Sing the song of men and women joined in understanding and respect, the song of God's miracles, an earth protected and cherished, a gift for our children and the generations to come. The song of a land once ravished by war, now quiet and content, her soldiers home to leave no more, the song of a world redeemed, the song of peace. We are a people in whom the past endures, in whom the present is inconceivable without moments gone by. The Exodus lasted a moment enduring forever. What happened once upon a time happens all the time.
וינפש ושם
שמרו
בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם.
As you are able, I invite you to please rise for the Amidah, which begins on page 46.
Adonai, Shabbat Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol HaGibor V'Norah, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'konei Hakol, V'zocher Chasdei Avot V'imahot, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם מרוני בחיי הכל, אתה רם לחושיע, משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם. מחכה חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות ומי דומך, מלך ממיד ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה לחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי הכל.
אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלע. You are holy, your name is holy, and those who are holy praise you every day. Blessed are you, Adonai, the holy God. Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'el HaKadosh. You may be seated. We read together at the top of page 61. Grant us peace, your most precious gift, O eternal source of peace, and give us the will to proclaim its message to all the peoples of the earth. Bless our country as a safeguard of peace, its advocate among the nations. May contentment reign within our borders, health and happiness within our homes. Strengthen the bonds of friendship and fellowship among all the inhabitants of every land. Plant virtue in every soul, and may the love of your name hallow every home and every heart. Praised are you, Eternal One, who blesses our people with peace. Baruch atah Adonai, hamevarech et amo Israel v'shalom.
Shalom,
We continue to pray silently.
Good evening, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
It's good to see everybody. And for those watching live stream, it's good to be seen and to know that you are out there and worshiping with us. I wonder how many of you know the name Mike Krzyzewski? Okay, so I see several nods. Mike Krzyzewski, whose last name is spelled with 5 consecutive consonants. If you include Y as a consonant, K-R-Z-Y-Z, and he lets us off the hook by calling him Krzyzewski. Mike Krzyzewski was the fabled coach of the Duke University Blue Devils for 42 years. He won 5 national titles, participated in 13 Final Four tournaments, won 15 Atlantic Coast Conference championships. So he has a rare record in the annals of college basketball. And along the way, I think it's safe to say, the Blue Devils under Krzyzewski played hundreds of teams, including some of the greatest teams in NBA basketball history. University of Kansas, Ohio State, University of North Carolina, UCLA, Baylor, and on. So at one point when Krzyzewski was asked, in all of these years, who did you find to be your toughest opponent? And his answer is not a little surprising. His answer was human nature. And we can see what he means, because he must have been referring along the way to some of our less worthy attributes, and let me make a brief list. We are self-centered and selfish. We are aggressive, easily hurt, resistant, often jealous, and sometimes bent on vengeance. We're in love with honor and glory, unconvinced by rational argument. We have a proclivity for self-deception, and even sometimes, not us, cheating. And so we can very well see what Coach Krzyzewski means by human nature as his toughest, perhaps most pervasive opponent. And I recently came across a quote by another worthy, Lisa Simpson, from the TV series The Simpsons. And here's what she said: "I learned very early that beneath my goody two-shoes lies some very dark socks." So our Torah portion for this Shabbat is Parshat Mishpatim, beginning in chapter 21 of the book of Exodus. And it deals with law. What's the function of law? It creates guidelines to promote and preserve the social order, its security, its peace, its capacity to protect our rights and liberties of all of us, to prevent harm. These are functions of the law. The great Mesopotamian king Hammurabi, many of us have heard of Hammurabi, who ruled for 50 years in the 18th century before the Common Era, that is 4,000 years ago. And he says in the preface to his famous code, which contained 282 laws, these laws are to bring about the rule of righteousness in the land, to destroy the wicked and the evildoers, so that the strong should not harm the weak. A nice distillation of what law can do. Laws preserve society. But what about the problem of human nature? What about the great author Fyodor Dostoevsky's idea of the abyss of the self? As you may know, that Dostoevsky at one point asked his nieces and nephews to go into an empty room and look quietly in the mirror and stare into their own eyes for 5 minutes. What might they come to see? The toughest opponent, human nature. So how does law, aside from its function, its public function, its social function, for example, in our Parsha for this week, how does law deal with human nature and the abyss of the self as an obstacle? So I want to explore this by pointing to some examples from our Parsha. First of all, our Torah portion and its ever-sagacious author points out and exposes our less promising tendencies. "You shall not wrong a stranger or oppress him, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt." Our xenophobic tendencies, to be suspicious of the other, to fear the other, to put the other out of our reach. Or from chapter 22, "If you lend money to my people, to the poor among you, do not act toward them as a creditor." We don't want to be taken advantage of. We're going to ask for interest. Or perhaps we resent the poor because they aren't working to lift themselves up. We've heard that before. And this idea plays, doesn't it? It sells. The poor don't work very hard. So why should we, if we're going to loan money to them, why should we not take interest? You shall not, verse 27 of chapter 22, revile God, nor put a curse upon a chieftain among your people. The tendency to blame God. Why did this happen? Why did God allow this to happen? I'm going to abandon God. Or the tendency to resist human authority. You shall not revile God, nor put a curse upon a chieftain upon your people. Notice, by the way, that these imperatives presuppose certain ideas about who we are oftentimes. What some of our baser proclivities are. These are assumptions behind these imperatives. Nobody has to say to me, breathe every 15 seconds, because I'm going to do that anyway. Imperatives point to something contrary to what I might more naturally want to do. You must not carry about false rumors, chapter 23, verse 1. Oh, how we love to gossip. How we love to talk to another person about somebody who is not there, to triangulate, to feel superior, to feel that we belong and that somebody else does not. I've often wondered if we were to devote ourselves, just for one day, not to allow ourselves during our talk with others to talk about other people. The rabbis say even positive talk about somebody who's not here is dangerous and harmful. Oh, what a wonderful person he is. Hoping that you might say, well, but there's this problem with this person. Even positive talk is harmful. And not only false rumors, but gossip in general. I'll move to Leviticus chapter 19. Do not go about as a talebearer among your countrymen. And we don't have to be told that if we were naturally inclined not to talk about anybody. Or back to Exodus. When you see the ass of your enemy lying under its burden and would refrain from raising it, you must nevertheless raise it with your enemy. What's the key word here? Nevertheless. In spite of your tendency, this is my enemy. Should I lift up his fallen animal? Should I indeed not only lift it up, but should I help him lift it up? How contrary to human nature is that? When you see the ass of your enemy lying under its burden and would refrain from raising it, you must nevertheless raise it with him. Or, 6 years you shall sow your land and gather its yield, but in the 7th year you shall let it rest and lie fallow. Let the needy among your people eat of it, and what they leave, let it remain there for the wild beasts to eat. Why should I relinquish what I own to others who haven't worked the land? Why should I let others enjoy it for nothing? And why shouldn't I go out a week after I leave it and gather in what remains? No, leave it for the animals. Even though this rubs against my sense of ownership and enjoying the fruits of my own work. Notice, therefore, that the Torah expresses baldly who we are oftentimes, exposing those dark socks beneath the goody two shoes. Maybe we should ask ourselves. On your behalf, I'll ask myself, am I ever like this? Or, if not very often, am I tempted? What would I see if I looked in Dostoevsky's mirror and just stared at my own eyes for 5 minutes? What would I uncover as lying, perhaps not on the surface, but not too far below the surface? Parshat Mishpatim, a series of laws with a rich, forthright, honest view of the darkness that can express itself out of our own human nature. And perhaps the Torah's realism can be expressed in an old Latin proverb: Homo homini lupus est. We can be wolves to one another. Or Thomas Hobbes's war of all against all, if we are only left to ourselves. But what about the other side? What about our benevolence, our capacity to be thoughtful, empathetic, generous? This is also part of who we are, isn't it? The rabbis talk about the Yetzer Hara, the evil impulse, and the Yetzer Tov, the Yetzer Tov, the good impulse. We are twofold. So I'm wondering what Parshat Mishpatim has to say about this. I'm just going back to the passages that I've already read. You shall not wrong a stranger or oppress him, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. How shall we cross the abyss between myself and the other? Through empathy, through the recognition that we have a common history. We were strangers. Empathy brings us into the shoes of the other. The Torah, as convinced as it is that we are inclined not to befriend the stranger, calls us in that same pasuk, that same verse, to the other side of ourselves, that we can overcome that impediment through another element of human nature, and that is empathy. That verse, as well as being realistic, is a summons to reach across the divide and feel the experience of the weak, on the assumption that we can do it. Otherwise, it wouldn't ask us to do it. When you see the ass of your enemy lying under its burden and would refrain from raising it, you must nevertheless raise it with him. The Torah is asserting that we can overcome our human impulse not to help our enemy. Otherwise, it wouldn't call us to do it. You shall draw a 5-sided triangle. Now, I want you to try real hard to do it. But we can't do it by definition. Nobody in his right mind would call us to do it. We're only called to do what we can do. And the Torah recognizes the nevertheless to our less promising impulses. So, yes, Coach K, Coach Krzyzewski, did face a tough opponent in human nature. All those practices, all of those tryouts, all the time when he had to go to the 8th man and tell him he's not going to play very much this year, and then come to feel the wrath, unexpressed perhaps, of that person. Yes, he did face human nature with its corrosive and harmful features. But notice again that Coach K did, after all, win 5 national championships. So human nature is not like the other laws of nature. Human nature is pliable. it's bendable, it's educable. Sigmund Freud, founder of modern psychoanalysis, not only identified what he calls, and I quote, the fatal flaws that cut through our psychic lives, but he also devised therapeutic methods designed to wean us from our negative tendencies and for us to be able to live more productive lives. And we can be weaned. And if we can't, we might as well discard education. Because what is education other than to educe out of ourselves positive possibilities? If we can't be weaned, then education and all sorts of therapies are futile. And the Torah and Judaism, our Judaism that grows from it, are examples of both an honest, thoroughgoing realism about the depths to which we can sink, but also about the heights to which we can soar. And as always, the choice is ours, but it takes work. And it seems to me, how can I spend these many minutes without quoting Aristotle? It seems to me that the work it takes is the cultivation of habits, because habits tend to mute the impulses that bubble up from below. Habits that will still our less positive impulses and allow us, nevertheless, to live fruitful, positive lives with one another. At this moment, we always think about those individuals who are ailing of body, of mind, of soul, and call each other to think about them and to ask for a return to health. As my hand passes over your section of the congregation, and those of you who are live streaming may want to do this on your own, name out loud, if you wish, those about whom you are thinking, or if not, in the quiet of your own hearts. We also think on this occasion about Barry Cott, Thomas Cullinan, Donna Fike, John Goodman, Maddie Jefferson, Walter McCoy, Richard Moore, David Osage, Barbara Pellig, Betty Pickus, Edith and Levi Rubenstein, Scott Rue, Bob Shippey, and Craig Stout. We turn now in our prayer books to page 253, and let us join into the singing of the Mishaberach.
To make
turn now in our prayer books to page 282, and as you are able, I invite you to rise for the Aleinu.
علينا للشعبية لأدون هاكم لا تيتو ليوكسر ويشي شلوم أسر كيدو يها أراكسوت ميلو سمانو كميش بخوتا دم شلوم سمخو كيدو كهم بيقور علينا كي خلامونم
You may be seated. And we turn now to page 290 as we prepare for the recitation of the mourner's Kaddish. It is a fearful thing to love what death can touch, a fearful thing to love, to hope, to dream, to be and oh, to lose. A thing for fools this, and a holy thing to love. For your life has lived in me, your laugh once lifted me, your word was gift to me. To remember this brings a painful joy. 'Tis a human thing, love, a holy thing, to love what death has touched. We think now of our loved ones whom death has recently taken from us, those who died at this season in years past, and those whom we have drawn into our hearts with our own. We think especially on this occasion of those who were laid to rest during the past week. Arlene Magar, Robert Spencer Wilkov. And we think as well of those who have been laid to rest during the past 30 days. Lee Burkons, Lenny Caden, Marlene Keyes, Francis Seekley, Donald Singer, Linda Ludwig, Jeffrey N. Miller, Russell Whitner. And we take into our hearts those individuals whose yahrzeits occur at this time. Lenore S. Amster, Norman L. Arsham, Madeline H. Baker, Dr. Otto Walter Blum, Evelyn Weidenthal Blum, Alfred M. Bonhard, Beatrice Deiches Cohen, Leonard L. Copeland, Arthur Dettelbach, Margaret Leslie Dolan, Scott A. Duvin, Esther Fisher, Carrie Heitler Friedheim, Nelson Friedman, Peter L. Galvin, Bernice B. Gans, Robert S. Garson, Albert J. Goodman, Frederick Heiber, Irene Sylvia Jaskulik Heiber, David Ralph Hertz, Dr. William J. Heyman, Hyman H. Hill, Henry H. Hirsch, Simon A. Hollander, Sidney H. Horwitz, Bernat A. Hibschman, Stanley S. Keller, Jerome Kimmelman, Maynard Charles Lee, Lieutenant Earl M. Lieberman, Harry Loeb, Isidore Lashban, Leroy F. Lustig, Katie Mandelkorn, Charles A. Melcher, Barbara Mendelson, Nathan Mitchell, Anna G. Rader, Henry C. Richmond, Sadie A. Rigglehout, Henry Rose, Rose Bubis Roscoff, Nelson J. Sadegor, Gabriel Schaffner, Hattie Einstein Schwartz, Samuel E. Schwartz, Lillian Schaffrin, J. Carl Silverberg, Norman A. Sugarman, Jane Ellen Udelf, Mayor Weil, Kenneth G. Weinberg, Dr. Sidney D. Wiseman, Jesse B. Wohl, Frank Wooliger, Eugene N. Zeidman, Dorothy Camberg Zip. If anyone at this point would like to make mention of a loved one or a friend whose name has not just now been read, please take this opportunity to do so. Zichronam livracha, may their memories always be our blessing. At this point, I would like to invite those who are observing the Shiva period, the first 7 days after the death of a loved one, if you wish to please rise. Those who are observing the Shloshim period, the first 30 days after the death of a loved one, please rise. Those who are observing the Yartzeit, the first year or the anniversary of the death of a loved one, please rise. And now, as a caring congregation, let us all rise as together we sanctify the name of our God with the words of the Kaddish, found on page 294, as we say together, Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, v'yalma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayichon v'yomeichon v'chayedechol beit Yisrael, v'agala v'izman kariv v'yamru amen, Yehei shemei rabbah mevarach le'olam olamei almaya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei dekudashah b'richu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran b'alma v'yamru amen Yehei shalom rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yamru amen Oseh shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yamru amen. May the source of peace and peace to all who mourn and comfort all the bereaved among us, and let us say together, Amen. You may be seated. It's time now for our Shechianu moments. Shall I open it up?
You got anything?
Do I have anything?
Yeah.
Kenner Siebel, we've worked together now for 24 years.
23, feels like 24.
Has never asked me that. What does it say about human nature? Anybody have a simcha to announce?
Birthday?
Anniversary. Pitchers and catchers going down to Arizona.
Do you have something, Blaze?
Yeah.
What do you have?
Well, I got a new phone.
Oh, Mazel Tov.
Okay.
And tomorrow, I'm really excited that I'm selling my artwork tomorrow at the Upside Downs event.
The Upside of Downs event, you're selling your artwork.
Yeah.
No, that's very nice.
Mazel Tov. Beautiful, Blaze. Thank you.
Each of us certainly has many things to feel grateful for. Even if we're having a bad day, it's useful to try nevertheless to see what is good and positive and hopeful in our lives. So why don't we take a moment of silence and just reflect upon our blessings.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehecheanu v'kimanu v'hityanu lazman hazeh.
And for our closing song, we're going to sing Adon Olam. It says here, page 356.
I wrote the wrong page number down. I'm sorry, Rabbi. It's actually on page 321.
I wondered about that.
And
yeah.
I know. It's 321. This particular melody is a little new. It's not a new melody. It's newer to us.
Okay.
And it says that this melody comes from Amsterdam. So let's try this one together. Adon Olam. Adon Olam asher malach b'terem kol yitzir nivra lihet natzah
We read in Psalm 104 that wine gladdens the human heart, and we have a great deal to be gladdened about. Let's
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei perich ha'golafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kirshanu mitzvotei v'rachmanu, v'shabbat kodesho b'yachadav ratzon inchilanu, zikaron lema'aseh v'reishit, ki hu yom tehillah l'mikra el kodesh, zeicher l'tziat mitzrayim, ki vanu v'charta yadanu kidashta mikol ha'olim, v'shavat kodesh be'ahava uv'ratzon hinchaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh Shabbat. Amen.
not bad. And our blessing over our bounty.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen.
Adonai oz le'amo yitain, Adonai varech et amo v'shalom. May the Lord give strength to God's people. May the Lord bless all of God's peoples with the blessings of shalom, of peace. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom. Amen.